Welcome to this Moving Panels One Shot. Let's have a nerdy little conversation. And today we're going to bring back another bracket. We had a lot of fun with our last bracket of the worst comic book movie ever. And I got an idea of let's do the best 80s comic book movie, right when comic book movies were getting going. You had Superman, the movie, kick things off in the 70s. And then they went, we got to, ride this cash cow no matter what. And so we got some movies here with the 80s. And of course, if we're going to talk 80s, we got to talk to the host of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. It's Tim Williams.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
And joining us as well is Mr. Ron West. How are you, Ron?
I am great. Wonderful. Glad to be here with you guys. Looking forward to jumping into this topic tonight.
Oh, this is going to be a fun one. Mm-hmm. And I had to have three people because we're going to make the ruling that it's got to be majority 2 out of 3. Mm-hmm. So that way we can call it. And so let's go ahead and jump into this. So this isn't be an extremely long episode like our worst one was.
Two-parter.
I will say I did as much research as I could to find every single movie that was, again, as our show says, inspired by, based on, or adapted from the world of comics. And that includes not only comic books, but graphic novels, comic strips, anything. And I believe I found all of them. If I did not, please let me know, because one, it means I've never heard of it, which there were some that popped up that I had never heard of until we started doing this research. Mm-hmm. And I found, let's see, 18, 19, 20, 20, I found 22 movies. Now, what we did right before we started recording was we went ahead and eliminated 4 of these movies. And the reason we eliminated them was because 2 of the 3 of us had never seen it. And so might as well go ahead and remove it. I have actually, as of this recording, seen all of these. I, as of this recording, own all of these except 2. So
welcome to the world of Laramy, everybody.
Yep, there we go. I bought some of these I had never heard of. I bought them just for this episode, even though I knew I'm going to watch these and then we're just going to eliminate it because the other 2 guys haven't watched it. So we are eliminating Brenda Starr, which I've actually already done an episode before on. Bethany and I did an episode on Brenda Starr, but neither Tim nor Ron had seen it. So the Brooke Shields Brenda Starr movie is gone. There was a television movie, which I also included in this list, some television movies, called The Spirit, the same one that was made by Frank Miller, the same comic. But there was a Spirit television show, and that has been removed. By the way, it starred Sam Jones. I want to point that out. The Spirit was played by Sam Jones.
Wow.
I think the 2 of you already know the connection that I'm going to make later.
Yeah.
All right. I also eliminated one that I had really never heard of, or the comic strip that it was based on. It's called Jane and the Lost City, based on an old 40s comic strip, British comic strip called Jane. But this movie came out in the 80s and starred Sam Jones.
I'm noticing a pattern here.
Yeah, Sam Jones. You'll hear his name one more time when we get into this bracket. And then finally, we are eliminating that it's based off a graphic novel called When the Wind Blows. Now, I want to go ahead and say this. This is actually one of the ones I don't own, but I want to. It is on Tubi. I actually watched it on Tubi. It is amazing. It is an animated movie. It's only about an hour and a half, and it is powerful. It's about wartime, and it's about... I don't want to get into it because, obviously we're not going to talk about it, but I strongly recommend it. I have actually already ordered the graphic novel so I could read the graphic novel. And I want to get the movie, but it's a little pricey right now. So I'm kind of watching a copy of it and hoping it'll maybe drop a few bucks. It's not horrible. I think it's $30 for the Blu-ray, which is right there at that level of, trying to find like one of those rare movies. So we eliminated those 4, but I want to go ahead and say, the criteria that I based to make this bracket and put them in order was all based off of ratings. IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic. I used all the audience score. I used all of it, averaged it all together, made the rankings. When the Wind Blows was number 1.
Wow.
You definitely piqued my interest.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Like I said, it's on Tubi, so you can watch it. So I just wanted to throw that out. But those 4 are gone. since we couldn't fairly consider them since 2 of the 3 of us had never seen it. So here we are. We've got 18 movies, which of course does not make a perfect bracket. So there will be a first elimination round between our bottom 4. And so let's go ahead and jump into it. So here we go. And I love the first matchup. Oh, by the way, Tim and Ron have no idea the order of these movies.
Yes, we're going to be very surprised.
So they're going to be surprised by the matchups here.
That's
okay.
Cool.
All right. So here we go.
Anticipation. Come on, man. Let's go.
So getting themselves out of the bottom and entering the bracket. First up is Supergirl, Helen Slater Supergirl, versus an episode Tim and I just did, Howard the Duck.
Oh, man. Well, I already know where I'm going with this one. So I'll go first.
We're going for best 80s comic book movie.
So I'll start since we just covered it. They're both super campy.
Yes.
But there's only one that I would definitely watch repeatedly, and that's Howard the Duck. Much love to Helen Slater. I mean, she did a great job with Supergirl. I mean, she's an iconic character, but the movie is not that great. But Howard the Duck is even more so iconic just because of how big of a bomb it was. But it's still a lot of fun to watch. So that's my vote.
All right. What say you, Ron?
I agree with Tim here. I've never cared for that Supergirl movie, and probably a good reason why we didn't get Supergirl 2 and Supergirl 3 and Supergirl 4.
Well, I'm sure Superman 3 and Superman 4 had a play in that as well.
Right.
But the Howard the Duck movie, while it was panned and did poorly when it came out, I mean it's just to a certain degree beloved by a segment of the fan base now. So it has to be Howard the Duck. When he showed up in the Guardians of the Galaxy
post-credit scene,
the collector,
I lost it. I was just so I was not expecting it. And I was so happy to see that character that I know from the comics. But definitely Howard the Duck.
We're going with Howard the Duck. I'll go ahead and take Supergirl was number 17. Howard the Duck was 16.
Oh,
okay.
So, but I will go Howard the Duck because just like with the last bracket, I will not talk bad about a Superman property. So there we go. Howard the Duck.
Be
All
consistent.
right. So now number 15, Red Sonja versus number 18, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
I'll let Ron go first this time.
I will say real quick though. So again, I know some people might argue with Red Sonja. So this Red Sonja, again, it is spelled Sonja, which is the way the comic book is spelled, not the books.
Mm-hmm.
The books are spelled with the Y. Also, the books had no connection to Conan, whereas obviously the movie, even though they don't say he's Conan, he's Conan.
I was reading that today that they could not use Conan because they didn't have the rights. So they gave him another name, but he basically played Conan, but they said it could be like one of his traveling names. So there's very loosely connected, but
yeah. Which in the comics they're connected. So, and then of course Tim and I briefly mentioned it in one of our episodes how you then could argue that Red Sonja was actually the first Marvel movie and not Howard the Duck.
Right.
So, but
we'll
go on.
That.
So Ron, you get to go first on this one. So what's better, Red Sonja or Superman 4, The Quest for Peace?
This is more of a vote for what's worse. I cannot stand Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. I hate to say that about a Superman property to you, Laramy, but I do not like that movie. And I think it may largely be because of John Cryer as little Luther in the movie. I just never really cared for John Cryer, but
now he is Lex Luthor. He's Lex Luthor
on
Supergirl,
Supergirl. I never cared for this movie. I mean, Red Sonja is not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination either. But I'm going to go kind of like addition by subtraction here and go Red Sonja.
Tim, how about you?
I'm going to put it on you, Laramy, and this is my only reason, I don't think either one of them deserved to go far, but I fell asleep twice on Red Sonja this past week, and I know that I've seen Superman 4 at least all the way through without falling asleep. So my drowsy meter edges out Superman Quest for Peace just above Red Sonja because I did not make it through one sitting without falling asleep.
All right, so it comes down to me, and it's a similar thing for me, Tim. Red Sonja, I tuned out a few times. I also, and I know Bethany, I don't think she's ever seen Red Sonja, but if she sat and watched it, I'm just sitting there just hearing Bethany going. So every time Red Sonja gets in trouble, she has to be saved by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I was going to say that when I watched it. Yep.
And like for
he's literally only in the movie to save her,
to rescue her.
It's like not there at all, and then all of a sudden he just shows up out of nowhere. It's crazy. Yeah.
And then the little kid who I found out would later go on to be the person in the suit for Donatello in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. He was also the kid in The Last Dragon.
Amazing.
Ron, that we talked about.
Yeah, the little kid from The Last Dragon.
Yeah.
So, and then Superman 4, again, not only just me being a Superman, like there's the 80s nostalgia of that movie and the almost wanting to watch it like as a Saturday morning movie to me. I mean, yeah, Nuclear Man having Lex Luthor's voice is just, it's horrible. But yeah, we're early on. But we're going to put through Superman 4. So here we go. We got our bracket officially going now. So this is full round. So we're going to go back to Howard the Duck, number 16.
Okay.
And Howard the Duck is now up against our new number 1 since when the Wind Blows got knocked out. So Howard the Duck, number 16 versus number 1, Superman 2.
Superman 2 is definitely the winner. I thought Batman was going to be number 1, but
right, that's what I was thinking too.
This Superman 2 is by far my favorite Superman movie.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about the theatrical or the Donner cut?
Well, the theatrical, because the Donner cut didn't come out till the 2000s.
Just making sure.
So even though it was made in the 80s, I don't count it as an 80s movie.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. But go ahead.
Superhero movies are as good as your villain, and Superman 2 has a great villain.
Terrence Stamp is amazing.
Yeah. Outstanding.
Yeah. All right, so I don't think we need to argue that one anymore.
No,
Superman 2.
Is a clean sweep.
Yeah. Howard the Duck is a great classic 80s movie, but yeah, Superman 2's got to win that one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. Here's some new ones here. So number 9, The Incredible Hulk Returns. That's the one where he teams up with the mighty Thor.
Right.
Against the Wes Craven classic Swamp Thing.
Ooh.
All right, so again, TV movie versus theatrical movie.
Right.
So we do have that. But I mean, one of the greatest comic book television series.
Yeah.
And this was the first movie that came from it. And then we've got Swamp Thing, which spawned a sequel, which spawned its own television series where Dick Durock playing the character throughout. And hey, look, we're going to go ahead and say, even though we're a little off with timing, at the time of this recording, James Gunn has just announced that he's bringing Swamp Thing back to the movies.
Mm-hmm.
So,
good. I'll tell you, I'll go since someone else is going. Swamp Thing is my pick. I always like the Swamp Thing movie.
Okay.
But also because, you know what? It's a theatrical movie and it's 90 minutes and we need to bring that back because I'm tired of the 3 hours of homeless that are bogging us down right now. And that this Swamp Thing has the darker tone, which is more like the comic than when we get a little later to the next Swamp Thing movie. Swamp Thing for me, I never liked the whole TV show really.
Oh wow. Okay.
To begin with, I was never a big fan as a kid. I was probably rocking the Underoos at one point, but never a big fan of the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno TV show.
I'm going to go ahead and step in. I'm going to go ahead and say Swamp Thing too. Again, it's one of those. I'm a big Swamp Thing fan. It's one of my favorite characters. I grew up with this character and this really the television show, but I remember the movie so well, and I remember the character so well, and as rubbery as the suit looks in the first movie, I enjoy it. The Incredible Hulk Returns, it is the Thor stuff that I don't like.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the look of Thor because they don't make him the Asgardian god in the movie. He's just an ancient Viking that they resurrect. But the whole Donald Blake stuff where he just holds the hammer and summons Thor, whereas in the comics, Donald Blake turns into Thor.
Mm-hmm.
In this, this was the golden age in the 60s. I know it was a backdoor pilot for a Thor television show, which of course didn't pick up. And then there's the whole loves, and I'm really fresh on this one because I watched both of these today. Not both of these, both of the Hulk movies today. The whole love story that's going on with David Banner, and I forgot even what her name is. That's how insignificant that love story is to that movie.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm going Swamp Thing. If you have any comments, Tim, you can make them now.
Yeah. I mean, it's another clean sweep. I mean, I watched the Hulk TV movies this week, so they're fresh on my mind as well. I call this one, The Return of Hulk, Hulk Finds a Friend, because like the whole, Thor bringing Thor in was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a backdoor pilot. But it's not very good. We'll get to it. Which I did enjoy it more so than the trial of the Incredible Hulk. But
oh, really? See, I'm the other way around.
Yeah, no, I wasn't a big fan of the second one.
Yeah.
But I like Swamp Thing. I'll go with that one.
All right, moving on. We've got number 5, Heavy Metal, which, let me point out, this was our number 5 seed, but this was on our list for one of the worst comic book movies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what that tells you about the movies that came out in the 80s. Or
no, looking at this list originally told me what this said about the 80s movies.
Yeah.
We've already talked about several of these. So
yeah. So number 5, Heavy Metal, which again, this is more of a loose connection because it's really just based off of a magazine titled Heavy Metal that had just a bunch of different types of stories and all in it. But it is going up against number 12, Conan the Destroyer. So the second movie.
Conan.
Yeah.
Conan the
Destroyer. I love that movie. I will watch that movie anytime it's on TV. I stop. That's my favorite Conan movie over The Barbarian.
I agree. I like Destroyer better than Barbarian.
Yeah. I watched Conan. That's the most recent one. I watched Conan the Destroyer today, and I had not seen it in a long time. And I watched Conan the Barbarian like within the last year or two. So it's still fresh on my mind. But I'm with you. I enjoyed Destroyer a lot more than Conan the Barbarian. I think they're both good movies. They're very different in tone because Destroyer is a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more fun, a little bit more adventure, which is probably why I like it more. But it's definitely either Conan movie is better than Heavy Metal.
I'll agree. And Tim, you always talk about rewatchability. I would rather turn around and rewatch Conan the Destroyer than I would ever want to turn around and rewatch Heavy Metal.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, Conan the Destroyer moves on then. All right, next up, we've got our number 13, lucky number 13, Christopher Reeve, Richard Pryor, Superman 3. Going up against number 4, Conan the Barbarian.
Oh. I'll go first. Conan the Barbarian edges it out. And
why does it edge it out?
Superman 3 was just not good. And I think because Superman 2 was so much better, it's such a letdown. I will say Superman 3 has some good moments, but the movie as a whole doesn't hold up very well. Conan the Barbarian is very similar. Like there's parts of it that are good. It's not great altogether. Like I said, it's a slight edge out, very slight. But
all right.
I said it. I'll stick with it.
I'm going to tee you up here, Laramy, because I'm going Superman 3.
Okay.
And the reason why I don't think either movie is a very good movie, but I remember as a kid, I really, really liked Superman 3. It might have been because of Richard Pryor. I'm not sure, but I really, because Richard Pryor and Brewster's Millions and these other movies that are coming out at the time, so I liked him. The Kid, wasn't that Richard Pryor?
Toy.
Yep, the toy.
Yeah.
I'm going Superman 3 over Conan the Barbarian. What say you, Laramy?
Yeah, I got to go Superman 3.
I didn't knew that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, Conan the Barbarian is good, but as we just got finished saying, Destroyer is more fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Conan the Barbarian, and nothing against James Earl Jones, but the thing at the end where he starts turning into the snake, that's just so goofy to me.
Yeah.
And at least Superman 3, when it gets goofy, like at the end when the supercomputer merges with the woman and creates the campiness works, you know. And then you can't beat the Clark Kent versus Superman fight.
Yeah, that's the only scene that would maybe, that was the thing that was kind of, when I said it, I was like, well, maybe that scene pops up as being really good. So it doesn't matter.
Superman
doesn't matter because I don't win. So we'll just, so that edges it out for everybody.
But yeah, drunk Superman, you gotta love drunk Superman. I mean, he's all there are memes about drunk Superman. So yeah, all right, Superman 3 going forward. All right, here we go. This will be a fun one. Our number 3, yes, this made the number 3 seed. And once again, we come back to Sam Jones, Flash Gordon.
Flash! Savior of the universe, which is actually, that song is actually on the 80s Flick Flashback movie songs playlist on Apple Music. Yeah, there you go. G-plug. I don't make any money off of this at all, so it's not like, I'm not making any money, but it's just cool to know that it's on, and it's a fun song. I love listening to that song. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I digress.
You're good. I kind of have a feeling where this was going to go. So Flash Gordon against number 14, Sheena.
Flash Gordon. Because once again, go ahead, Ron.
Queen over Sheena. So I'm going with Flash Gordon. And Queen.
Yeah, it's Flash
Queen
Gordon.
Makes the movie. Yeah,
it's Flash Gordon.
Once again, I fell asleep during Sheena. So, but
okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I fell asleep during Flash Gordon.
Oh yeah.
So
it doesn't hold up.
It doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
I remember Flash Gordon. I remember it as a kid because like my babysitter's brother or boyfriend, I don't remember. It's a weird memory, was a huge fan of it. And actually is the one that told me about the soundtrack. Like I remember hearing that the Queen Flash Gordon soundtrack because he would play it and thought it was so cool. They had clips from the movie in the songs. Like that was like mind blowing to him at the, it was early 80s. But I don't ever remember actually watching the movie all the way through as a kid. So when I watched it this past year, I really enjoyed it. It was much more enjoyable than I thought it was going to be from the things that I had seen online and people talking about it. So I really enjoyed Flash Gordon. It was better than I expected.
It wasn't what I remembered. I'm going to be honest with that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, let's point out Sam Jones. So Flash Gordon, The Spirit, Jane and the Lost City, all-star Sam Jones. They were trying to get that man to be a star in the 80s, weren't they?
They tried really hard. A comic book movie star. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would also like to point out Timothy Dalton is in Flash Gordon. He was also the love interest in Brenda Starr.
Yeah.
So a couple of Timothy Dalton appearances there. All right. So Flash Gordon moves on. Up next, this one's got a little bit of maybe some asterisks next to it. So first off, number 11. Now, Tim and I actually talked about this. So number 11 is The Punisher. Dolph Lundgren's The Punisher. And there's some conflicting data as to whether this movie came out in 89 or 90. From what I have gathered, the official release date was in 89, which is what puts it as an 80s movie. So we got The Punisher. Dolph Lundgren's The Punisher. Yeah. Going up against our number 6 seed. This is another one very similar to Heavy Metal. It's really just taking the concept of a comic, and that's Weird Science. I kind of have a feeling where both of y'all are going.
Michael Hall, Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, I mean,
Weird Science.
Yeah, John Hughes is going to win this one. It's definitely Weird Science. Yeah,
but The Punisher fought ninjas. Come on.
And was directed by the same guy that did The Karate Kid, who wrote The Karate Kid. The Punisher was so bad. I watched that, and actually, I had to watch. I'll say this: I watched whatever version was on YouTube because that was the only way I could find it to watch it. I'm assuming that was the whole movie, but I promise you, the first 15 minutes, I'm like, they left something out, right? Why? Like we jumped right into a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, but there's so much exposition in the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I didn't miss anything.
I have a feeling I watched the same version to you. So I own it on DVD,
Right.
but I was somewhere else. And so I couldn't just grab my DVD. So I found it online, and the version I watched went to commercial breaks.
Yes. I
like
saw
it would
that.
show. Yes. It would show like Dolph Lundgren's face and just the title, The Punisher. And you would just hear like, doom. And then it would fade out and then fade back in.
Yeah. But it had all the language in it. Like it was still R-rated, but it was must have been like a UK version or whatever.
Well, so we'll go Weird Science on that one. So that one's going in. All right. Next up, we've got, this one's interesting. All right. We've got The Trial of the Incredible Hulk, which was number 7, versus number 10, The Return of Swamp Thing. So Trial of the Incredible Hulk. This is another backdoor pilot for a Daredevil TV show with John Rhys Davis. Is it John Rhys Davis? Why does that sound right? John Rhys Davis as the Kingpin, as Winston Fit.
Right.
And then The Return of Swamp Thing with the Heather Locklear joining as Abby Arcane. Also, Trial of the Incredible Hulk, I would like to point out, Stan Lee's first cameo.
Yes, I saw his cameo.
He was
in one of the jurors.
Yeah, in the trial of the Incredible Hulk, that doesn't actually happen. It's a dream. There is no trial in Trial of the Incredible Hulk.
You're right. He never does make it to trial. That is true.
Yeah,
I'm going trial. I really disliked the return of Swamp Thing, despite my crush on Heather Locklear at the time. The only reason I originally watched it in the 80s. Heather Locklear from Dynasty and
T.J. Hooker.
T.J. Hooker.
Yeah. That's right. She was on both at the same time, which I just thought was amazing. She's on 2 shows at the same time. But yeah, definitely. I was heavily into the Marvel movies at this time. While I didn't care for the Incredible Hulk, the different characters that were showing up from my comic books in the movie, I liked that more at the time.
Yeah, I got to go Trial too. I think I said it earlier. I like Trial better than Returns. I like the Daredevil stuff. I've said several times on this show that I'm a big Daredevil fan.
Yeah.
And I like the black suit. I mean, for the time, it looked good for an 80s thing. Now, had it become a television show, would they have eventually gone to the red suit or done something? I don't know. But the black suit, I thought looked fine. I actually even didn't mind the way they did his like Daredevil vision.
Yeah.
Where it was the little green, almost kind of night vision looking, but I liked it. So yeah, I got to go Trial. I'm not against Return to Swamp Thing because that's where you get more of the look of the really like the Swamp Thing character that I like. But yeah, it kind of gets a little too campy. So yeah, I'm going Trial. Yep. So you got any thoughts, Tim?
No, I really don't like. I mean, I don't think either one is necessarily better than the other. I think they're pretty equally matched. So if you guys go with Trial, I'll go with Trial.
I will point out there was a third Incredible Hulk movie, The Death of the Incredible Hulk, but that one came out in 1990. So so that one didn't make our list. All right, so final of the, I guess, full round 1, if you want to call it. So we've got the one that came out of our loser bracket, number 18, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, against, y'all knew it was coming eventually, number 2, Batman.
And we already know Batman's going to win.
Right shoulder.
Yeah. So behind me in my screensaver, or my background.
Yeah. Just for my my credibility, y'all both voted for Batman. I'm voting for Superman 4. So
as you have all the Superman memorabilia behind you. So that makes sense. So
yeah, okay, Batman goes through. Okay, yeah. All right.
But you have 3 Superman movies. We have 1 Batman movie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look.
And a Supergirl movie.
And a Supergirl. If we got into superhero movies of the 90s, how well do you think those Batman movies are going to do?
We're not talking about 90s right now. We're talking about 80s. Don't bring the 90s in this conversation. We're not talking 90s.
At least Superman has a sequel that has a contention here.
But he does not have Prince.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on. Here we go. Things are going to start getting interesting. Number 1, Superman 2, versus number 8, Swamp Thing.
Superman 2.
Yeah, Superman 2 is going to win that one.
Again, the villains in Superman 2, I've just always really enjoyed that movie. By far my favorite Superman movie. And while I like Swamp Thing, if I'm picking to watch between the two of those, it's always going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to call it now, but if this doesn't end up being Superman 2 versus Batman at the end, I don't know.
What are we doing here? Right.
Like, and Tim, you're the deciding vote because I'm Batman. There'd be Superman 2. So you could
this could get very heated in the finals. This could get very heated in the finals. All right, so here we go. Next up, we got number 12, Conan the Destroyer, against number 13, Superman 3.
Conan the Destroyer. Wilt Chamberlain, Grace Jones. Again, I really enjoyed that.
Mako,
yeah.
I don't think I voted for Superman 3 the last time. So I'm going Conan the Destroyer. Tim,
I'm going Superman 3. So let's leave it up to Tim.
Conan the Destroyer.
Yeah, I kind of figured. I'm not mad at it. Mad at it.
Yeah, I mean that's a good matchup because both of those movies are enjoyable in their own way and are rewatchable. So that is a good matchup.
And they are both very 80s movies too.
Very much.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Conan the Destroyer, even though it's a period piece, I'm trying to make it sound all fancy. It's a period piece.
Right.
The action in it is so 80s.
Oh yeah.
The storytelling is so 80s. Whereas Superman 3 just screams 80s. You got the rich guy that's not Lex trying to take over, and he's got the ditzy blonde with him that's always in the very 80s fashion styles. Yeah. So 2 very 80s movies. But we got Conan the Destroyer moving on. Now we got Sam Jones returning in our number 3 seed, Flash Gordon, against future Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. in Weird Science.
I'm going to go Weird Science. Even though I don't consider Weird Science a comic book movie, it's still a fun 80s movie. Yeah. It does not hold up as well now as it did, but I mean, I was a huge fan of Weird Science.
How many of these movies do?
Yeah, I know.
Though.
True. Very true. But yeah, I'm going Weird Science.
Yeah, I think I am too. That's a real close one for me. But yeah, I'm going Weird Science as well.
Okay.
If they're both on, I usually just what am I going to watch if they're both on? And I'm going Weird Science.
Yeah, that's what I've been sitting here thinking about is which one would I watch if I had to choose? And it's a tough one for me.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And I think for me it's nostalgia too, because like I know Weird Science so well, but I've only recently just watched Flash Gordon, so I don't have the same like nostalgia for Flash Gordon that I have for Weird Science. So that's for Weird Science definitely.
I can see it. And I'm going to throw this out, maybe unpopular opinion. I'm a bigger fan of the Weird Science TV show than I ever was of the movie.
I remember the TV show, but I don't know how much of it I actually watched because I was such a big fan of the movie. I don't know if I watched as much of the TV show as I think I do. Because it was on USA, wasn't it? Something like that?
It was a USA Network show. Whereas, do either one of you remember the Flash Gordon television show from like the early 2000s? I think it came on Sci-Fi.
I remember it being on. I did not.
Yeah, it's bad. I own it too, though. I'm just gonna throw that out. I own the complete series.
And we are not
all right.
Weird. All right. Side note: you can edit this out if you want to. That needs to be your TikTok videos right there, Laramy. You need to show people what you. These are the movies that I own. Can you believe that I own these movies? Because that you might get a million views. Yeah. Start with that one.
Again, can we talk about the fact I own Jane and the Lost City?
Right.
$5 on Amazon. That's what it was right there. All right, here we go. Last one. So we've got number 2, Batman, going up against number 7, The Trial of the Incredible Hulk.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I hate it too, but how does a TV movie beat Batman?
Yeah, it's got to be Batman. Michael Keaton is my Batman.
Right. Nicholson's not going to be beat by Bill Bixby. It's not going to happen.
All right, here we go. We're almost there. It's Superman 2 versus Conan the Destroyer.
Superman 2.
Oh, y'all paused for a second.
I did.
That shocks me a little bit.
I think it's only because I just watched Conan the Destroyer and had an enjoyable time watching it. But once again, Superman 2 is deep nostalgia. And of course, Laramy and I have done both of our episodes on Superman 2, so we have a lot of love for it. So yeah, I remember Superman 2 more than I remember Superman, even though I watched both of them a lot as a kid. Superman 2 is easily the winner in this one.
Well, and I'll take the homerism away from Laramy on this one because I'm Superman 2. Superman 2 is just a better movie.
Yeah,
Conan the Destroyer is fun and everything. But Superman 2 is better.
Yeah,
but, and we're talking best '80s movie. I mean, does your mind really go to a Conan movie when you're thinking of?
No, not really.
I mean, yeah, even if you're just talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, like I don't think Conan the Destroyer. I mean, you're not going to get past Terminator for those. All right, and then Batman is going up against Weird Science.
Batman. These are getting too easy. Yeah.
I mean, can you blame it?
This next round's not going to be as easy though.
Well, this is the final.
Yep.
This is it. Exactly what we thought.
Yeah.
So here we go. Let's see if we can really hash this one out. So in the finals, as we predicted, and I mean, could it have been anything else?
No.
Superman 2. Superman 2, which also, let's talk about this. Superman 2, 1980.
Yeah.
Batman, 1989.
Beginning and the end of the decade. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, Superman 2 versus Batman. General Zod versus Joker.
Right,
Lois Lane or Vicky Vale.
Definitely Vicky Vale. If that's what we're voting on, I'm going Vicky Vale over Lois Lane all day long. Kim Basinger all day long.
Perry White or Alfred Pennyworth.
Pennyworth. Alfred. Well, no. I think I'm.
Look, I'm going Batman. I'll make the call. Batman is one of my favorite superhero movies ever. Superman 2 is probably on that list, although it's going to be my list is going to be heavily populated by Marvel movies. But this original Batman movie is my favorite of all the Batman movies. Michael Keaton is my Batman. You got Prince doing the soundtrack. You got Jack Nicholson it up all over the screen, every scene that he's in. It's Batman for me. And 1989 at the movie theater, Titusville, Florida, with my buddy Jeff, who had a big giant Batman insignia on the back window of his lowrider pickup truck, and we both went and bought Batman hats. We were really feeling Batman. Go ahead.
I mean, if you got more to say, I want you to say it because I'm going to stop Tim before he talks.
Go ahead, Laramy.
Would you like to make your closing argument, Laramy?
Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It is going to come down to you because I'm picking Superman 2.
Yeah.
I love Batman 89.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. I know both of you. Michael Keaton is my Batman. I'm the same. I was a kid, 89. I was a kid when the movie came out. I remember getting the book. We talked about it when we recorded our episode about it for your podcast, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Jack Nicholson, one of the greats, not the greatest Joker in my opinion. That's Heath Ledger, but Nicholson is one of the greats. Superman 2, though, that is Christopher Reeve at his peak of Superman. General Zod, I don't think there has yet to be a better villain for Superman. You're even looking at having his entourage, Non, and you had them. They pretty much had to recreate that for Man of Steel because you got to have the three of them. You got Gene Hackman. You've got Marlon Brando, and let's put aside all of the stuff about Richard Donner and him getting fired and getting replaced. This is still an iconic movie, and it's one that when you see stuff about Superman, yes, it might come from the first movie or it's going to come from this movie. Superman 2, there's so much about it that just screams nostalgia, that just screams classic. I mean, Batman's great. Batman's wonderful. But would we have this Batman movie if not for Superman 2?
But we do.
Very.
And Tim has no Superman poster behind him on his screensaver. But
And I,
Yeah, I think you know where this is going, Laramy. It was a great argument. It was a great argument. No, I mean, this is the finals that you want. Like this is the
I
is the
agree.
matchup that you want. So it's not a
Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, there's no like no contest. Like there's a clear favorite when you put these two together. I think they're both worthy to be in the top two spots at the end. But for me, Batman was the superhero movie that I got the most excited about. I loved Superman 2 as a kid. I was a big Superman fan at that time, but when Batman hit, that my allegiance shifted at that point.
Yeah.
And it could be Tim Burton's vision, it could be Michael Keaton, all of those things. But yeah, I became a Batman fan because of, well, not take that back, because I was a fan of the Batman TV show even as a kid. So, but I enjoy both of them. But if you put the two movies in front of me to watch, I would go to Batman because that's my nostalgia is there for that one. I've seen it so many times and I enjoy watching it so many times. But Superman 2, like I said, is worthy to be the competitor.
Absolutely. Yeah. This, and I mean, if we were to, and I'm not saying we won't, if we were to come back and we were to do a 90s bracket and do all the comic book movies of the 90s, are there two clear finalists, as we said there were for this one?
Wow.
Are there two clear finalists of the 90s?
I'm trying to think of what other, like, besides the Batman sequels. I mean, well, I guess were a few, but yeah, there's.
I mean, there were more towards the end. I mean, you had the Blade movies,
right?
Yeah, you had the Blade movies. I mean, technically, Mystery Men came out, I think, in 99, 98, or 97, something like that. But I mean, you even get into some of the random ones too, like the Shadow and the Phantom.
Yeah, you did Rocketeer.
So you, but you're not remembering those. That's right. That's where my point is. You're not remembering those. Yeah. Are there two standout 90s movies the way Superman 2 and Batman stand out from the 80s?
No, not.
I don't think there are either.
No, when I saw your list, the first two ones that on the list that jumped out were clearly Batman and Superman 2. Those were the two when you sent it. For me, the third one was Conan the Destroyer, but those two were clearly above everything else. And yeah, you're right. I did just a quick search real quick of superhero movies in the 90s: The Crow, Mystery Men, Mask, Blade, Spawn, and then the Batman sequels, which get progressively worse. Batman Forever, Batman Robin.
I mean, Superman was did too. So
yeah.
However, you still got Superman. I would still put Superman 1 and 2 over Batman and Batman Returns. So in terms of a movie with its sequel,
right? I agree with that.
All right. So let me throw this at you guys. So we talked about maybe we could do the 90s, and of course, you start getting 2000s and 2010s, and then it really starts to get interesting. So those could actually really be interesting. But since the original Superman can't really be in a bracket,
right?
Because it was the first. I mean, unless you go movie serials from the 40s and 50s, unless you go Batman 66, the movie.
That's not.
Superman the movie. I just want to ask you two guys.
It's still Batman.
Okay. Okay. So Superman the movie would not beat out Batman for either one of you.
Not for me.
Yeah.
Tim?
That's tough. I mean, it's tougher. And it's not because, and I think because you have to say you wouldn't have Batman, you wouldn't have anything on Batman without Superman, the movie. I mean, it's really the one that got it all started. So
this one got all of it started. It's the granddaddy of them all.
Yeah.
I mean,
so that's a little tougher. I think Batman is a better movie, but that's just budget and time to learn from mistakes. I mean, we've talked about in the movies. Superman was good, but there were things that they were still learning as they were going because no one had ever done it before. So you're breaking ground. You're going to make some mistakes. So it's still Batman, but that's a good question. Okay. That's a good question.
Okay, yeah,
that's a tougher call for me. That's a tougher call than Superman 2. But even though I like Superman 2 better than Superman, as a movie.
All right, well, there you have it. We have determined it. Moving panels decided, and so let it be so. The greatest 80s comic, any type themed related to the comics medium movie from the 80s is Tim Burton's Batman 89, as we like to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So there we have it. All
I
right.
can hear the Danny Elfman score in my hair.
Yeah.
In my
See, that was one I was going to throw out. I was going to throw out that too. Danny Elfman or John Williams. Yeah. Like, whew, those are some iconic. Good scores.
Those are both iconic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we're sorry there. But Ron and I dashed your dreams, your hopes and dreams.
No. I respect Batman 89. I've got no issues with Batman 89. I would have probably put up more of an argument if we did get to put, Superman the movie up against it. But I mean, think about it. Again, we keep saying this, and I'm just going to say it one last time. We're talking two movies that when they were initially promoted, they were just promoted with a logo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, the Batman logo, it was just a giant Batman logo, which I love. We're seeing it right now in Tim's background. But, it's even cut off on the sides whereas the Superman logo, it was a sky with a tiny little Superman logo and the little shot of just a person flying straight up towards it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're literally talking about they didn't need anything else
to
promote these movies other than a logo.
Yeah.
And just how awesome is that? I mean, I'm gonna go me, the DC loving guy. Tell me a Marvel hero other than Spider-Man that you could promote with just the logo. And you and people everywhere would know who you're talking about.
Spider-Man.
Now, I'm not talking
the one.
Let me first say, I'm not talking about now.
Right.
I'm talking about if it was the first of its kind. So before Robert Downey Jr. played Iron Man, could they have just put the arc reactor on a logo?
No.
No, and the same thing, like my thought when you said it was Wolverine's claws or just the X from X-Men, but before those came out, there were a lot of people that weren't as familiar with the X-Men properties. So in Marvel, it would be Spider-Man. I mean, that's
because I even think things like the Captain America shield, it's too generic looking. That if you just put the shield on which by the way, Captain America 90, that is what they did. They just put the shield on the poster. I don't think enough people would have recognized that shield immediately. Punisher, I mean, it's just a skull. And I know that they did that too. There was the skull. I mean, it said the Punisher, but there was the skull posters. I cannot think of a Marvel hero other than Spider-Man. I'll give Spider-Man his credit that if you put just the logo on a poster, people are immediately going to go, ooh, I'm going to go see that.
I don't think you can beforehand. I mean, after
you can now. Yeah, you can now.
Black Panther's helmet you certainly could put on and it would be recognized. Like I said, Wolverine's claws, but before, no, none of those. I mean, Spider-Man was the known property.
Yeah, but Superman and Batman, you could do it.
Yeah,
you could do it. Do it in 78 and then did it again in 89. So, all right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. We're definitely going to have to do this again. Like I said, I think the 90s could be interesting. I don't know if there's a clear standout in the 90s.
I just took a quick peek, and the winner may be Blade, which I like the Blade movies, but there's not some good selections.
Yeah, I mean, I've
Ninja Turtle movies like Dark Man. Some of that stuff was in there. Even the Power Rangers. But it's those pickings might be slim, but I'll let you come up with the bracket, sir.
Yeah, and I mean, you could be right. It could just end up being Blade because I've made my argument the same way we've talked about how Superman's the granddaddy of all of it, and then I will argue that Batman then gave it another push because it was kind of fading out in the 80s. Batman gave that push into the 90s. We got another wave in the 90s, and then Blade hit. And I think Blade really kicked it off that led to what we have now with the MCU.
You wouldn't have the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies without Blade, because that was probably the big ones that came after Blade.
Or the X-Men movies.
Or the X-Men movies, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because that was pretty much I think X-Men movies maybe in a year before Spider-Man. So,
yeah.
So we got that. All right, so Batman it is. You know what? We've done that episode for the 80s Flick Flashback.
We have.
But we have not done the episode for me. So for moving panels. So we may have to come back, and the two of you may have to join me to talk about Batman 89 that we have deemed the greatest 80s comic book movie. And yeah, look, I'm so excited. Let's do 90s, let's do 2000s, let's do 2010s.
Go for it, yeah.
And then once we have those four, let's put them up against each other.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And let's see what
2010s will be tough.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Yeah. Although we could have another Batman contender in there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Dark Knight's going to be hard to beat in the 2000s. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Give the 80s Flick Flashback a listen if you love 80s movies. And of course, we just talked about some great ones. And I'm sure Tim's running through his head of which ones of these he wants to do next. For his show. So give that a listen. But thank you, Tim. Thank you, Ron, for joining me on this. I hope y'all enjoyed it.
We did. It was fun.
I had a great time. Thank you for inviting me, Lemon. I always appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening for Moving Panels. I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and listen to an 80s Flick Flashback podcast once in a while, you could miss it. Do you love movies of a certain age? Do you miss the days of VHS tapes, VCRs, and the video rental stores? Does the thought of another 80s movie being remade seem inconceivable? My name is Tim Williams. I'm the creator and host of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. On each episode, I'm joined by guest co-hosts to discuss one of the many movies released in the 1980s. We share our first-time watch memories, our favorite scenes, and even learn some behind-the-scenes stories about the cast and crew along the way. New episodes are released every other Friday on your favorite podcasting platform. So make like a tree, get out of here, and go listen to an excellent episode of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. The ad is over. Go home. Go.